I'm a 19-year-old college student. I have been in the educational system for 14 years, yet have only started to learn about the unjust prison system in my sociology class, which talks about social problems in the world. Public shaming expert John Ronson addresses how it affects one's mental and physical well-being. He assumes that his readers have sympathy for those who are shamed. But shame happens in real life too, and in most cases, nonviolent offenders don't receive the empathy they deserve. Every day, especially people of color, are targeted victims. Inmates are stripped of their rights and are ultimately voiceless. Society is taught to be fearful towards these individuals. They are outcasted. It's easy to disregard the issue at hand if one has not experienced it themselves. I know the problem exists, but I really needed to hear more about the first-hand effects. I'm lucky enough to be able to hear about the experience my Professor Sem's TA had after she found herself stuck in the system herself.
Okay, so my name is Laura J. Murray, and I'm a fourth-year senior here at San Diego State. I'm a double major in criminal justice and sociology. So when I speak about asset forfeiture, it's because I was a victim. Back when the housing home loan crisis happened in 2007, 8, and 9, my home was foreclosed on, but that was just the beginning for me. I was laid off from my job because they had to also downsize. So I ended up losing the home, the only home that I've ever owned and that I was so proud to have. And I ended up living in my car, which I was pretty ill prepared to do. I don't really know who's prepared to do that, but I know I was not. It was the dead of summer. I think it was 2009. I'd had enough. It was hot, I was hungry, I had no food. Because of a previous conviction, I couldn't get food stamps at the time. I was on insulin, and it was all I could do to get the insulin and to get the needles I needed to inject that. And after finally having enough, one day I just snapped, and I grabbed a Burger King napkin, and I wrote a demand note on that Burger King napkin, and I walked into the nearest bank. And I ended up robbing that bank. And after that, I robbed another bank and another bank and another bank. It was over a few counties, so I got caught in the last county first. The money that was in my car from the other banks was seized as asset forfeiture. Now, this money was recorded and put in the county police department's fund, which they buy, SWAT gear with, and just to militarize their police department. The problem with that was the money was still wrapped in the community bank wrapper from the other county. This wasn't my money. I understand when you seize someone's money in a criminal enterprise, say drug dealing or counterfeit or something like that, but this money was clearly not my money, and clearly they could find who that money belonged to. They did not. Instead, I was sent to prison for nearly a decade, and I was charged for that entire $12,000, which was found in my vehicle. I was also charged 10% per annum interest. The bank got their insurance money, and they got their money back. And once again, I felt like I was a victim because the banks took my house, and now they're getting interest on this money, and this police department is actually not returning this money. After about 5 or 6 years of interest building up to hundreds of dollars a year and me making 17 cents an hour in prison, I decided to write my own ex parte motion for modification of my restitution. This was over like a year period. I did this all through snail mail. I wrote the entire motion by hand because the typewriters are used for much more important things, like inmates writing habeas corpuses for life without parole and death penalty sentences. So I wrote it out by hand because I was inspired by a man that wrote his entire habeas corpus out on a roll of toilet paper from the segregation unit. So if he could do it, I could do it. My motion was granted. I was given an attorney, and the money was reduced to, say, I think $2,000 that couldn't be accounted for. Well, I was fined for that. My restitution was eventually paid by the end. However, after everything that had happened and being in prison, there were a few things that I saw in there that greatly disturbed me, such as mass incarceration, such as a social injustice. There were 8-man cells when I was in Chowchilla detention facility for women. And in those 8-man cells, when I woke up the first day on the yard, on the main line, I saw 7 people of color looking back at me. And I was like, this is true. Mass incarceration is true. I was like, what is everybody doing here? And they're like, what are you doing here? The preponderance of people in color in there is just staggering to me. I transferred to a custody to community transition program in Kearney Mesa called CCTRP, which at first I hated, and I asked them to send me back to prison because it was very difficult for me to adjust after a decade. I didn't have the perks that I had as a bank robber. And I kept going to Parola and telling them, send me back. And every day he kept telling me, give yourself a chance. You can make it out there. And thank God he told me that, because the visits to his office got fewer and fewer. She put me in touch with a professor out here named Alan Mobley, who runs Project Rebound. And he had me jump through some hoops, write 10 pages of my academic history, why I was motivated to go back. And then the coordinator said, he's willing to take you and to advocate for you, but you need 7 classes. Can you take 7 classes in one semester? So I took 7 of the worst classes you would ever want to take. I completed it all. I had a 3.16, not the best, but I did the very best I could, because I was still in custody. I still had to get searched going out of the place, searched coming into the place. Parole would walk around on campus and watch me. I was not allowed cash or cell phones. I couldn't get a ride home from other students, or that would get me sent back to prison. It was an extremely strict program. I did everything it took to get to San Diego State. I wanted to come here so bad. One of my professors gave us an assignment, and it was on an SDSU blackboard, and I was at Mesa, and I kept looking at the SDSU logo thinking, that's where I'm gonna go. That's where I wanna go. I did the application process. I applied to 4 different colleges, like Professor Mobley told me, to San Bernardino, Cal State Fullerton, Chico State, and San Diego State, and they all turned me down in a quickness, including San Diego State. Okay, but I'm gonna finish my undergrad no matter what, and Chico State had offered me admission. So I signed up, got my financial aid packet, had my classes, even made a little friend at orientation at Chico State. 4 days later, I came back. I was living in a parolee program. It's what's known as the Four Corners of Death on 49th and Imperial. And I was at the gym, and I kept getting these emails to update my contact information for San Diego State. I was like, why are these people bugging me? They already turned me down. Why are they torturing me like this? So I'm like, let me just check it and I'll clear it, and that'll be it, and then I'll finish my workout. So I went to clear it, and where it once said denied, it said admitted. And I just sat there in the gym by myself and started crying because I was so happy. For once something was going right for me. So when I got here, I decided, you know what I mean? Not only was I going to be here and was I going to represent and was I going to do well, but that I was going to kill it, I was going to kill it. And I took 15 units and I got a straight 4.0 right across the freaking board in every single class. Not an A-, not a B+, but a 4.0 in every single one. The next time it was a 4.0 and the next time it was a 4.0. Now I'm in 4 different student organizations. In addition to being the president of Project Rebound, I'm also in the Criminal Justice Honor Society, the Sociological Honor Society. Social injustices like that, they happen every day, and we go through our lives and we never know that happens. So when I came out of prison, I decided I wanted to do something about it. I didn't want to be part of the problem anymore. I didn't want to be part of an incarcerated number. I wanted to be part of the solution.
As the semester comes to an end, I realize a huge flaw that exists in school. Real-life issues that are going on in the world are not talked about enough. The core of our studies focuses on math, English, science, and history. But what about the present? What about the events that are happening every single day? We continue to strip away the rights of prisoners, leaving them to rot behind bars. The system is designed to ignore their needs. There is no justice in the criminal justice system. To conclude this film, I am truly inspired by Laura's story. I hope others in the prison system will be able to share their stories one day too and overcome their challenges, just as she did. I want to see change in the system and will continue to educate myself about this. I hope you do too.